Our NHL-wide breakdown of every single squad's top 5 fantasy pieces rolls into the Buffalo Sabres, a fantasy goldmine, and what you need to do with this Buffalo squad on the latest edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome back inside the lab to the latest edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my distinguished co-host, Mr. Steele Roden. On this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Shout out to the everydayers. Salute, much love. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day, even through these dog days of the summer, Steele. I feel very grateful for all the support that we've been seeing. We got our listener league coming up. We're doing breakdowns, more special guests, everything that you guys need to know for fantasy draft season right around the corner. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers bet $5. They get 3 weeks for free of NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Mr. Roden, all of the plugs are done. Over to you, because I'm fired up about today's episode. This Buffalo Sabres team, we were very high on them going into last year. Some growing pains for a very young core. Who are you looking at top 5 after the first pick, much like some other teams? I had a little bit of trouble ranking these guys, but I'm feeling really good about the Sabres this season and what I think they're in store for, a big bounce back.
Yeah, this is a very intriguing team to me because there's so much young talent on the roster, up and down the lineup, in every single position. You look at guys like Zach Benson, Jack Quinn, who's coming back from injury, Bowen Byram in a full season with the Buffalo Sabres as well, Owen Power. You've got Ukko Pekka Luukkonen and Devin Levi in the blue paint. Lots to love about this team. A little bit of a disappointing season last year on a lot of these guys we talked about, regression in Tage Thompson. The disappointment of Devin Levi coming into the league as a rookie. So lots of things that are intriguing and interesting, but still lots to love about this Buffalo Sabres team. And I'm going to start us off with the clear-cut number one, in my opinion, has to be Rasmus Dahlin, off the board first from this Sabres organization. He is one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League. He's also one of the best fantasy defensemen in the National Hockey League. He's top 5, in my opinion. He's right there, again, fantasy-wise, with Evan Bouchard, Roman Josi, Quinn Hughes. Obviously, Cale Makar is the clear-cut number 1 in a lot of people's opinion out there. But to me, Rasmus Dahlin is a top 5 defenseman fantasy-wise in the National Hockey League right now. So he's number 1. He does everything you're looking for in any format as well. Banger League beauty, fantasy points, categorical. He does it all. A little bit of a down season, like, again, we talked about with the entirety of the Sabres team last year, down from 73 points to 59 this last year. But he's still bringing all those peripherals you look for. 66 penalty minutes. He's getting power play points, even strength points. 235 shots, a career high for him. 154 blocks, a career high for him. And 195 hits, a career high for him. So even with the down season in points, he had a career year in all the other peripherals you're looking at. So categorical leagues, fantasy point leagues, whatever you're looking at, he is a dog out there for you. So if you draft this player, you're going to be absolutely ecstatic. You're going to be happy with your team. Look, this was a first overall pick back in 2018 for a reason. He's showcasing his skill set in the offensive zone. He's showcasing what he can do on the defensive side. Obviously, he's such a strong player. I love this. This player. If I can draft him on my team, so you better draft him as well.
I wholeheartedly agree. I like saying this, slam dunk number 1 for the Sabres. He is the first Sabre off the board. He is also still a part of arguably the best young trio of defensemen in the NHL. Like, we can make some arguments for other squads, but when it comes to young D-men, Owen Power, Bowen Byram, and Rasmus Dahlin on the back end for this team. They also have Matthias Samuelsson, who was a 32nd overall draft pick. He was basically a first rounder. There is a lot of talent on this blue line. We haven't even gotten to the forward group yet, and we'll get there, and to the blue paint. They also made a couple of intriguing ads in the offseason that I want to pick your brain on. A lot to talk about with this team. So I'm just going to agree with you. You covered all the angles here with Rasmus Dahlin. He is an absolute stud. Thank you for bringing up the points, statistics, and all the angles needed, my friend. Let's roll into the number 2 if you're okay with it, because now it gets a little spicy for me. I had Tage Thompson there. Then I had Alex Tuch there. I swapped them around. I'm going to say this. Tage Thompson 2 seasons ago, 94 points, blew the doors off the league. Hands were money, 295 shots on net steal. I'm hoping that it's a return to form, and I'm going to take a shot on Tage Thompson over. You know how much I like Alex Tuch, and he fills out the peripherals a little bit better, and perhaps Steele, that's the safer play. But I'm going to go a little riskier and hope Tage Thompson's bounce back is real, because also, let me spit this out and back over to you. The Sabres were top 5 in goals 2 years ago, top 5 in power play, and they were a dangerous offensive unit. Last year, Steele, they scored less goals than the New York Islanders, 23rd in the NHL in scoring. That's not nearly good enough for how talented this young core is. So, Tage Thompson at 2, because I really do think the bounce back is going to be real in Buffalo, at least on the offensive end.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's Tage Thompson. There's no hesitation there. I think when you look at the Buffalo Sabres team as a whole, again, we were all disappointed fantasy-wise, generality-wise, about how they performed last season. A lot of regression in all of their players. Tage Thompson, Alex Tuch, Rasmus Dahlin. It wasn't just one or two of them. It was the entire team that really disappointed fantasy fans out there, as well as Buffalo Sabres fans. So for me, it's Tage Thompson at number 2. Alex Tuch, he's going to be in the top 5 for me, but number 2 is Tage Thompson. When you look at the progression and development of his game, and really becoming a goal scorer and a shooter now that you can really depend on. I know, again, the one season where he really stood out with the 94 points, but you look at the first 4 seasons of his NHL career, 3 goals, 7 goals, 8 goals. And then you look at the last 3 seasons, 38, 47, and 29. I saw a statistic the other day of Tage Thompson in his first 186 games compared to his last 186 games. In his first, in the first half of his career, only 68 points. In the second half of his career, over 180 points. So he has really turned on. He's found the confidence through his coach, through his general manager in the Buffalo Sabres organization. I think that's what really we saw, was getting that confidence and knowing and being told again and again and again that you are a goal scorer in this league. Start acting like it. And that's what he's doing right now. So again, regression season. We're all disappointed. I expect to bounce back just alongside everyone else on this team. A lot of young prospects we're going to continue to talk about. But for me, Tage Thompson is the number 2. I expect a huge season from him. Maybe not 94 points again, but I'm expecting over 80 points.
I like that. Dahlin locked in at 1, Tage Thompson at 2. Let's continue the rest of our top 5 breakdown after the break. Got a little breakout candidate. Wow, that's a lot of breaks. Too many, Steele. Sorry about that, everybody. But we're going to talk about a lot more angles that need to be covered with this Buffalo Sabres squad right after the break. Tomorrow's episode, Pittsburgh Penguins, baby. You know I like talking about Sidney Crosby and the boys, so make sure you're tuning in for that. And the rest of the week, we'll finish off the breakdowns. And then, Steele, we're diving deep into fantasy draft prep. Mock draft Mondays coming in hot, baby. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel on this podcast, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you right now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. When you're with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, which you can cancel anytime. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you go over and check out Locked On NHL's podcast. Locked On NHL provides you with a national perspective on all things NHL each and every day with national experts and local insight on every team across the league. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Flip, I think this is, again, maybe where we go in a little bit of a different way when we come to our top 5 Buffalo Sabres list. You had Alex Tuch at number 2. I'm assuming you have Tage Thompson at number 3 here.
No, I had Tage Thompson at 2. That's why I said I made a lot of last-minute switches. That's why I wholeheartedly agree with you. Dahlin and Tage Thompson, too. And I actually love that you're feeling the bounce back from Thompson as well as I am. I just think the offensive ceiling is so much higher. And, yeah, it might be a little bit riskier because of those down seasons, and Tuch might be the quote-unquote safer play because of some of those peripherals. I'm with you. I'm going to take the shot on Tage Thompson. I think he's just far too good. And if you're going to buy into the rest of this team also coming up a little bit, then why not also? Yeah, no, I got Thompson at 2. Actually, Tuch slid down my list even after more consideration because I got another player at 3. So maybe we do have the same list. Hit me with who you got at 3.
All right, maybe we do have the same list. At number 3, I am absolutely feeling Ukko Pekka Luukkonen at this number 3 spot right now. I think he's showing us that he is a number 1 goaltender in this league, and Devin Levi is going to have to wait his turn because when you look at the last 2 seasons from Luukkonen, he's had some difficulty of having a strong defenseman core in front of him over the time in Buffalo. But 2 seasons ago, he finished 17-11-4. He had an .891 save percentage with a 3.61 goals against average, but he still had the winning record, just not a very strong team in front of him. But showcasing that last year that he can play a lot more games than he got. 51 games played or 51 games started for Luukkonen. 27-22-4 with 5 shutouts and a .910 save percentage with a 2.57 goals against average. I think this is a goaltender that you can really depend on right now. Again, even with the regression of a season from an offensive standpoint last year, defensively, they were pretty good. Again, struggled a little bit from time to time, inconsistencies in their game. But for the most part, Ukko Pekka Luukkonen was very strong. And he was one of those guys that you could really, I think, for the most part, was getting picked up off the waiver at the beginning of the season, if not drafted in the later stages of your fantasy league. So I think he's a strong goaltender. He's a big goaltender as well. 6'5", 215 pounds. It's really, again, when he's got a really good group of guys in front of him who he can depend on as well, he's a very strong goaltender. He can move side to side. He can make the big saves when you're asking him to. So I like what I've seen from him. I'm actually putting Luukkonen over guys like Alex Tuch right now.
That is a very spicy take, Mr. Roden, especially because I can't remember many lists that you've had any goalies in the top 5 whatsoever, and now you got a guy in at 3. I like it. It's spicy. I'm going to go, again, a safer, that's risky, in my opinion. However, starting goaltenders don't come around very often, and if you're buying into it, kudos to you. I don't think I have the same cojones there because I'm going to go with Dylan Cozens. 108 hits, 42 penalty minutes, 200 shots on net, and that was a down season. 47 points down from 68. I really like this player, Steele. So as much as you're kind of buying into the UPL, I'm buying into Dylan Cozens. And I think when you look at the numbers for this team, also good point on them being pretty good defensively. They were in the top of the league in shots against. I believe they allowed the 7th least shots against. So defensively, I love that point. UPL for me, a little bit risky, especially when you know they really do still love Devin Levi. I agree with your takes here that he is going to be the guy to take the blue paint. Definitely at least to start the year. Maybe he struggles. They also brought in James Reimer, security blanket. A lot of teams are doing this 3-headed monster thing. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm going with Dylan Cozens here, Steele. I really like this player a lot. I think he's just scratching the surface of his talent. 23 years old. So many good young options here in Buffalo. I call this a fantasy gold mine, Steele, and I really do think Owen Power doesn't even make my top 5, and he's a first overall pick. So I think there's a lot to love about Buffalo, and I'm going to go with Cozens at 3. UPL also doesn't make my list, but I really like that you're high on this goaltender this year. I could see it. I could definitely see it.
Yeah, I mean, I like him. I think over the last 2 seasons, he's really showed us that he's capable of being that number one goaltender.
Yeah.
And the way that Devin Levi played, and I understand bringing in James Reimer, having that security blanket, a guy who's been a veteran in this league for so long now, who you can depend on to come in from time to time and really play great. But UPL has been really, really impressing me as of late. And just looking at what he's done over the last 2 seasons, I'm high on this guy. I think you can still get him at a very reasonable round. I'm looking at UPL around the 10th or 11th, 11th round right now.
I like that.
Maybe you can even wait a little bit longer, but I think again we've seen the domino effect when goalies get taken. There's always a first domino that goes down hard in the first or in the second and third round. 6 goalies get taken right after another, and then it happens again about 5 rounds after that. So you gotta be very cognizant of where you're picking these guys. But UPL for me, 10th, 11th round, I think that's a very safe bet of where you can draft this player. But I wouldn't be shocked if he maybe goes ahead of that too. At number 4.
Yeah.
Look, I really like Dylan Cozens. I'm high on this player as well. I try to always draft him for those categorical leagues and what he does offensively, the skill set, playing for Team Canada. He really had a good summer this year. He's showcasing that he's getting back into form a little bit more confidence. Even with all of that said, I'm going with Alex Tuch at the number 4 position from the Buffalo Sabres for me. 59 points this last year, 79 the year prior to that. Again, down season for all of this team right now.
Oh, yeah.
But he still brings the peripheral categories, maybe not to the extent of what Dylan Cozens does with the hits and block category, but 82 blocks, 72 hits, 192 shots. Again, 59 points. He's on the first power play unit, which he did struggle last year on the power play unit, but again, with the bounce back expectations of all Tage Thompson, Dylan Cozens, Alex Tuch, Rasmus Dahlin, you can expect the point total to go up in the right trajectory. So for me, Alex Tuch just being on that first line with Tage Thompson, and then being on the first power play unit. I know Dylan Cozens is on there as well, projected to be on there, but I'm going with Alex Tuch. It's close. It's close though.
I really love this player, Steele. Just a complete all-around beautician, and obviously a very important piece for this Buffalo Sabres squad on and off the ice. He's a leader. However, the point that you're making about the power play is somewhat concerning for me. Head coach Lindy Ruff, they bring in Lindy Ruff. Yeah, they bring in Jason Zucker. Who is the other piece that I like? The McLeod. They brought in McLeod from the Oilers for that Savoie deal. I think the Sabres power play is what I'm looking at as one of my biggest keys to their success this upcoming season. Last year, they only clicked at 16.6% Steele, only better than the Flyers, Blue Jackets, and Penguins. The Chicago Blackhawks had a better power play than the Buffalo Sabres, and only a year before, they were a top 5 power play team. So that needs to improve for me, and then if they do that, this will be a squad in the mix for a wild card spot, in my opinion. However, I love that you have Alex Tuch there at your 4 spot or 3 spot? 4 spot.
4 spot. He's at the 4 spot.
Thank you very much. He's in my 4th spot as well. So let's just leave it at that because you covered those angles nicely. Man, I appreciate that. You're doing all my work.
Wait, you have Alex Tuch at number 4? I thought you just had Dylan Cozens at number 4.
Dylan Cozens at number 3.
Oh,
I had Dahlin 1, Tage Thompson 2. I got Cozens at 3 and Tuch at 4, baby. So listen, this Buffalo Sabres team has all the pieces. They got to put it together. Is it going to happen? Let's talk about it a little bit more after the break, because I also got to talk about a player that I think, Steele, is one of the most prime breakout candidates in the league this year.
I think there's a few prime candidates on this Buffalo Sabres.
Giddy up.
We're going to talk about some potential guys, potential candidates to keep an eye on for and draft in the later stages of your fantasy draft. We're going to come back as well this next week and the following week, breaking down everything you need to know about our fantasy listener leagues. All the information is going to get tossed on our episodes, as well as we're going to put out the polls, the votes, and everything you need to know information-wise on our Twitter account. So make sure you're tuning into both the episodes every single day, as well as following us on our Twitter account. We're going to get to all of that and more after the break. But first, this episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. And once again, thank you so much for tuning into the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Flip and I really do appreciate all that love and support.
Yes,
so make
sir.
sure you continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We are seeing a tremendous amount of support over the last month and a half throughout the summertime. So thank you so much for that. Again, stay tuned for all of our episodes over this next week and a half. We are going to be breaking down the format, the settings, the league breakdown, who's coming back from our championships last year in both our casual and competitive league. Again, we're going to throw out some polls on our Twitter account, asking you guys what you also want to see maybe a little bit different in this upcoming season. From a format standpoint or a league setting standpoint, categorical league, fantasy point league, whatever it is. We're going to break it down over the next week and a half. We're also getting ramped and pumped up for our mock draft Monday starting in September. You can expect a mock draft every single Monday leading up to the start of the regular season. So make sure you're tuning into all of that as well. Flip, over to you, my friend. Back to the episode and the content on today's hands. Buffalo Sabres, top 5 targets. Who is your number 5 guy off this team?
So you could look at a guy like Jack Quinn as a breakout candidate. He wouldn't make the top 5. You could look at a guy like even Zach Benson as a potential offensive dynamo. The kid's got hands for days. He's not making the top 5. Too risky. JJ Peterka is my number 5 target. And yeah, you could go other options here, Steele, for sure. And guys like Owen Power, Bowen Byram, they're going to be looked at in a whole bunch of different formats for sure. Bowen Byram's going to play with Rasmus Dahlin. That could be sneaky right there. However, I love this player, JJ Peterka. We had John Madish of The Score on. He did a feature piece right at that time about Peterka and him being a bit of a unicorn. He can shoot. He can skate. He's a very smart player. And if you're buying into him, the Tage Thompson come up, a bounce back for Alex Tuch, Peterka's going to play on their wing. I love the balance of that top trio, Thompson, Tuch, and Peterka. I know, again, maybe this is the riskiest of my top 5, Steele. I keep saying that. 226 shots last year for the kid. 28 goals, and I don't even think he's close to scratching the surface. I'm very high on this player, Steele. I'm tipping my hand once again. This is one of those players that I'm going to be going after hot and heavy for all of the reasons I just said, but mostly for the ones you and I have covered on today's episode. The offense is going to come back for this team. UPL looking very confident in the cage. Another year of Owen Power getting confident. This team, if everything comes together, they should be a very, very hard team to play against at both ends of the rink, Steele. So I'm going to stop talking. JJ Peterka, breakout candidate, 30-plus goals. I'm feeling it. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, and he would be my 5th target off the board for the Buffalo Sabres, in my opinion.
Breakout candidate for sure. He is one of those guys right there. I debated about putting him at number 5 as well, but I couldn't leave my boy Dylan Cozens off the top 5 list. I'm a little bit surprised that you don't have UPL in there in the top 5. It is a riskier situation going with JJ Peterka, but I'm absolutely here for it because of everything you just said. Top line with Tage Thompson and Alex Tuch. The goal scoring ability that we're seeing at such a young age. The opportunity he's getting now on the first power play unit. Absolutely love it. For me, Dylan Cozens does make the number 5 target off this list for me for all the reasons you said. Former 7th overall pick in the first round draft back in 2019. A regression season, obviously, but we've seen what he's been doing over the summer. Team Canada getting it done, showing us the skill set that he brings, the peripherals that he brings, 200 shots, 108 hits, 42 penalty minutes. He's a little bit of a feisty fighter out there, not afraid to drop the gloves and support his teammates and back up his teammates in that form. So Dylan Cozens, number 5 for me, but JJ Peterka, the potential that he brings. Zach Benson, the potential that he brings. Jack Quinn, like you said, I think Jack Quinn is a very, very sneaky good player this upcoming season. Obviously, he's dealt with a very serious injury that kept him out of the lineup for almost the entire season, but 19 points in 27 games last year, 56 shots, 31 hits, and 12 blocks. I think he could be a very sneaky add towards the end of your draft. Your second or third last player. There's a lot of young talent on this team. The problem that I see with this moving forward is not everyone's going to be able to touch the puck as much as they want to. It's going to be the top 3 guys. Obviously, Rasmus Dahlin and Bowen Byram making that top D pairing is very intriguing as well. So Bowen Byram in there as well with all those other 3 players we just mentioned. Lots of young talent on this team, but not everyone's going to get fortunate enough to play the amount of ice time as well.
Good point,
touch the
Steele.
puck as much as they want.
Take this in for a second. The second power play unit, Jack Quinn, Zach Benson, Bowen Byram, Owen Power, and then throw in the wily vet of Jason Zucker.
Yeah.
Like I said, Lindy Ruff, it's a new coach. There's some new faces in that bottom 6. They lost some pillars. Jeff Skinner's not there. Kyle Okposo, I know not fantasy relevant Okposo, but just the established players that have really held this forward group down over the last number of years. Those veterans are gone. So there is an opportunity here for some guys to stake their claim. The minutes are a very interesting angle that you bring up, Mr. Roden. That's why I like doing this show with you, because that is something to perhaps look at. Because if a bunch of these guys start hot, maybe it eats into some of those minutes in the forward group to guys like Tuch and others, and maybe that does play into it. However, for now, I'm comfortable saying fantasy goldmine going after a bunch of Buffalo Sabres this year, Steele, I think is going to be a very wise endeavor.
It is going to be a very wise endeavor because honestly, I'm expecting besides the top 3 guys that we talked about, top 2, Rasmus Dahlin, Tage Thompson, maybe even Alex Tuch out there. I think a lot of these players might actually slide a couple of rounds down, and that's where you can really jump and make the difference of your fantasy team going into this season. So lots of love. I also agree with you. Fantasy goldmine, Buffalo Sabres, young talent surrounding this entire team right now. So pick them, choose them properly when you get into those potential candidates for breakout seasons. But we absolutely love all of them right now. So fantasy goldmine indeed. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you also go check out the Locked On NHL Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Once again, make sure you're staying tuned to all of our episodes going throughout the until the regular season. Just stay tuned for all the episodes Monday through Friday. Everything you need to know about our fantasy listener leagues coming up over the next week. You can expect all the information on our episodes as well as Twitter. And from both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your bets this summer. We shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.